Hey folks, good morning and welcome to another episode of Steelers Morning Rush. I'm Alan Saunders. It is Wednesday, March 19th, and today we're going to talk about cornerbacks. I know we talked about defensive line 2 days in a row. We got to let it go. But I do think that we're probably not talking enough about cornerback in terms of the Steelers' draft needs, their potential for a first-round pick even, and some of the options that are there for them. I know we talked a lot about wide receiver. Obviously, with DK Metcalf, that has kind of fallen down the board a little bit. There's definitely still some uncertainty about the future of George Pickens, Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson for different reasons. Pickens, because he's unpredictable. Austin also in the last year of his contract. And Wilson, obviously, didn't play at all last year as a rookie because he was hurt. And we have no idea how good he is. So I still can make a good case for wide receiver, but it's clearly less important with DK Metcalf in the fold than it was a week and a half ago. So I think in many regards, that means cornerback goes up the board for the Steelers. It becomes the next most likely position after defensive tackle, or at least the position with the next highest level of need after defensive tackle. And I do think this is a fairly good class of cornerback. It's not the defensive tackle class. It's not the running back class in terms of those are just exceptional, almost historic level depth for those two positions. But I think corner feels pretty good. It's better than wide receiver. It's way better than quarterback in terms of where they are and what talent is out there. Now, I will say, having said that, 21 does not feel like a good place to take a cornerback. I think the top ones, obviously the top one is Travis Hunter. He's going to be a top 3 pick. He'll be long off the board. There's some talk of Will Johnson potentially falling. I'm not sure I see it, but there is talk out there. A bigger corner from Michigan, an outside corner, and a player that I think is really good. Steven 116th asked us yesterday, would the Steelers take Will Johnson over Grant, Harmon, or Nolan? He always seems to be available during a lot of the mock drafts. I do like Johnson, but I think Kenneth Grant could have an immediate impact. That's a good question. Yeah, I would take Will Johnson over those D tackles. I think it's a deeper class of D tackle. I think you can find those guys later. And while the D-line need might be slightly more acute, really, this is a draft where the Steelers are drafting for 2026 and beyond, almost no matter what. Like, they're not going to be good this year. It doesn't really matter. You take the player that has the most impact for your team long-term, and I think Will Johnson is the one guy in this class that's like a bona fide cornerback one that could potentially be available to the Steelers. He may not even play if they drafted him this year. I'm sure they'd find a way to use him, but it would still be worthwhile, even if he didn't, because he's that good. You work him in for some rotational stuff. It's not like you can't rotate corners. Yeah, so I think Johnson is definitely an option, but I also don't think he's very likely to be there. Mock Draft DB has him at 11. That would be a notable slide. The other guy who's in that range is Jahdae Barron. Mock Draft DB has him at 16. I've seen him available to the Steelers at 21 a lot more regularly. My problem with Jahdae Barron is I don't know if he's going to be an outside corner. He's 5'11". That's like right on the borderline size-wise. Certainly fast enough to do either. I don't know. And I think there's some risk there because of not knowing. The Steelers have not valued slot corners the same way they valued outside corners. They'll spend big-time resources on outside corners. Last year, they got a half-suspended guy and a 5'9" undrafted rookie to play slot corner. Like, it is, for whatever reason, even though it is a starting position in this defense, as we broke down yesterday, they just do not believe in spending resources in slot corners. And I have a hard time seeing them picking Jahdae Barron if they don't think he can play outside. If they do think he can play outside, great. Again, he'll have, and maybe he can be inside outside. Maybe he can be the slot this year and then move to outside to replace Darius Slay next year. I don't know. I think that is out there. I don't think I would take Barron over the collection of D tackles we talked about, but as I said yesterday in the afternoon drive, if you get a weird board, sure, I would take him. And if you want to consider him in a trade down situation, I think they would do that as well. If he's on the board and Grant and Nolan, okay, we could trade down 3 spots, something like that. The weird part about the rest of this cornerback class is that I like a lot of other players, and they're probably all going to be gone by the time the Steelers pick again. Siobhan Ravel, Mac from East Carolina, Max Hairston from Kentucky, Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame, Azariah Thomas from Florida State, Trey Amos from Ole Miss, Darian Porter from Iowa State. That's 6 guys that are all really good corners that would all, in the one way or another, be a really good fit for the Steelers. And they'll all be gone in the second round. Maybe one of them falls into the third, but I kind of doubt it. That feels like the whole second round. And without a second round pick, I actually think the Steelers might not take a corner at all because they're missing this huge value cluster in the draft. Not to say there aren't guys after that are good. There are, and we're going to talk about them. But when you whiff on that big of a cluster of draft picks, Mock Draft DB has Ravel to Amos, 38 to 44. It's just all corners. There's only 2 guys in between them. Porter's 58. Now, let's talk about some guys that are available later. Denzel Burke from Ohio State. Jacob Parrish from Kansas State. I think these Upton Stout from Western Kentucky. I think those guys are good slot options. Probably can't play outside, but if you're talking about drafting them in the 4th, 5th, or 6th round, it's not really a deal breaker. Some outside guys down there. I really like Quincy Riley from Louisville. I think he's underrated. I think he belongs in that higher group, to be perfectly honest. Kobe Bryant from Kansas. I really like Zy Alexander from LSU. It's a weird, I like all the Kansas draft picks, which is not the normal way of the world. I might have to double check myself there. Where this class kind of falls apart is at the end. They're not like guys in the 7th round that I like at corner. So if they're going to take one on day 3, it should probably be early, but I do think there are options. Now, the other part of this question is also from Stephen 116th. And also, we greatly appreciate the $5 super chat. Does Brandin Echols fix our slot cornerback problem, or is he more of a James Pierre replacement? And also, this is definitely my favorite podcast. Thank you, Stephen. We really appreciate you and everybody else in the audience. I think Brandin Echols will start in the slot. I think the idea of him being there is let Cory Trice compete, let Beanie Bishop compete. Let's see where they are and think about it again next year. Don't squeeze those guys out. Give them an opportunity. If they can't win it, Echols is fine. Echols can also play outside. In that way, I think Brandin Echols is the Cam Sutton replacement. If you're talking about who he's replacing on the 24 roster, I don't know that he is the fix to the problem. He's not that good. He's okay. It's weird because I think he'll be better in the slot, but he played almost all outside with the Jets. I don't think anyone should think the job is done with Brandin Echols there. He could turn out to be better than he's played in the past with a different position and a different defense. We see that all the time. But I think this is mostly okay, let's see what we have here. What do we have in Echols? Can Trice play the slot? What do we have in Beanie? Where are these guys a year from now? I think that's where that's at. The same thing in outside corner. It's giving the Trice the opportunity to win that job too. And say, hey, I can play next to Joey like you thought I could. And then Slay goes off into the sunset and the Steelers have their 2 corners. If they draft one, that guy will be the replacement to James Pierre. Or they'll just bring James Pierre back. Or somebody like James Pierre who can play some special teams, which besides Beanie, I think. Oh, Echols is a good special teamer. But yeah, I mean, I would call Echols the replacement to Sutton, Slay the replacement to Jackson, and if they draft someone, that'll be the replacement for Pierre. Hope that answers the question. Like I said, I don't think slot corner and outside corner are by any means done. They're definitely big needs, but I think they're filled enough that they're not emergencies either. So if the board doesn't go the way they want, doesn't happen in the first round, which seems likely, the big pack of the second round passes them by without them finding a way to get a pick back in that round. And then you look in the 3rd and the 4th and the 5th and the 6th, and it's just not BPA. I think the Steelers can let it go and be just fine with what they've got, add another free agent backup, and move on and try again next year. That's all I got for now. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications here on the YouTube channel. We always appreciate your questions for topics on this show or Steelers Afternoon Drive. Definitely in the off season are what keeps us going. Till next time, enjoy.